What's good, everybody? Sean Shepherd live streaming on the check-in mid-afternoon. We are streaming live on Facebook. I want to say we're streaming live on LinkedIn, and we're also streaming live on YouTube. I just wanted to check in with everybody. If you hadn't noticed, we have an election coming up, and I wanted to talk about our politicians and their role with law enforcement and their effect on law enforcement. So, if you're on any of the platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, please subscribe to those respective platforms, hit the notification bell, and let's get started. I want to talk about politicians. Um, Far too often, when it comes to law enforcement, we look at each law enforcement agency and think that whatever does or doesn't happen inside of those agencies are the sole responsibility of those agencies. But what we don't take into account is elected officials that we put in office, we meaning you and I, what their role is in how law enforcement goes about their business. So when it comes to a major city like Los Angeles, the top cop in Los Angeles County is the district attorney, just like the top cop in the country is the attorney general. The attorney general on the federal level, that's an appointment, okay? An appointment made by an elected official. But when it comes to district attorneys on the local level, they run for that position. So we elect them. Why are district attorneys so important when it comes to law enforcement? Again, in each respective city, the district attorney is the top cop in that city. Okay? More often than not, district attorneys have unilateral authority to decide who's getting indicted. So if I'm Joe Blow out in the street and I get arrested for X, Y, and Z, the district attorney decides whether or not I'm going to get indicted. Same thing happens for a member of law enforcement who's accused of committing some crime. The district attorney has the unilateral authority to decide whether or not that member of law enforcement gets indicted or not. And the national statistics show that when it comes to law enforcement, less than 1% of officers that are accused of anything ever get indicted. And we as regular citizens have a problem with law enforcement because of that. Which we should really have a problem with is how the power structure is set up in our respective cities as it relates to the district attorney. So let's recap what the district attorney's job is. By and large, the district attorney's job is to prosecute cases brought forth by law enforcement. So the district attorney's office and all 88 law enforcement agencies in Los Angeles County, the DA's office and those agencies work together. Those agencies arrest people and charges are brought up against those people that are arrested sometimes. So you go from something that happened out in the general public, then we get into the courtroom. Case is heard. Depending on what that case is, the DA decides whether or not this person is going to get indicted and the trial proceeds. Okay? Since the district attorney works so closely with law enforcement agencies, I personally have a problem with that person more often than not having unilateral authority to decide whether a member of law enforcement is going to be indicted or not. You work too closely together. It's an incestuous relationship, especially when it comes to officer involved shootings. it's my personal opinion that every single officer involved shooting that occurs in any county be handled by a third party, not the DA's office. There's too much gray area, there's too much to be questioning based on the inherent relationship between the DA's office and the 88 law enforcement agencies in Los Angeles County. So, when we start talking about elected officials and their effect on law enforcement, I want to start at the top. I want to start with the district attorney. No district attorney in particular. I'm just talking about the position. I'm not talking about any individual district attorney. I want to make that clear. So let's go down to the next level of elected officials in Los Angeles County. Let's go to the mayor of Los Angeles, not the individual mayor who's in office now. I'm just talking about the position once again. I want to make that clear. So, if you've been paying attention, our current mayor just decided to hire a new chief of police within LAPD. That's typically on the city level how chiefs of police come into power. The mayor appoints them. The chief of police doesn't run for office like the sheriff. Chief of police is appointed by an elected official. So, if you don't like the policies and procedures of a law enforcement agency, I need you to understand that there's a reason beyond law enforcement why those policies and procedures are in place. But let's get back to the mayor. Mayor appoints the chief of police. The chief of police, in my opinion, is responsible for setting the tone of the entire department. Are we going to be a department that is rooted in compassion, community policing, empathy? Or are we a department that believes in ruling with an iron fist? When the chief of police is interviewing for that position with the mayor, he or she is going to outline their philosophy on what this department should be, how this department should move. And it's the mayor that decides whether that philosophy is in line with his or her philosophy. So the chief of police is a reflection on the mayor, and we put the mayor into office. So if you don't like your city law enforcement agency, whether it's San Francisco PD, Oakland PD, LAPD, NYPD, the Chicago Police Department, take that up with the mayor. Start with the mayor and work your way down, because that mayor is the one that's responsible for that chief being in place. Conversely, the sheriff around the country, the sheriff, which is the chief of the sheriff's department, is an elected position. Your local sheriff was elected by you and by me to oversee that department. So if you have a problem with the sheriff's department, and I don't mean LA sheriffs, I mean any sheriff's department, look in the mirror. You're the person that put that individual in office. Now, you may not have voted for the sheriff. I get that. The point I'm trying to make is we do have some say in what type of policing we're subjected to when it comes to voting for the DA, voting for the mayor, voting for the sheriff. It's a trickle down effect. So I need you to keep that in mind. When it comes to policies and procedures of a law enforcement agency, and you don't like those policies and procedures. So, for example, for the longest time, chokeholds were legal with various law enforcement agencies around the country. They're now banned. But while they were legal, somebody had to sign off on that particular tactic as it relates to being a use of force. Use of force policy is approved and signed off on by city council on the city level, board of supervisors on the county level. We elect city council members. We elect supervisors. I don't recall anyone in town hall meetings or when meeting with elected officials that are running for city council or running for board of supervisors. I don't recall hearing anyone ask those individuals about their thoughts on use of force. What are your thoughts on use of force policy? What's acceptable to you and what's unacceptable to you? Because that should be reflected in how the city agencies police and how the county agencies police. We focus way too much on the law enforcement agency itself. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but everybody has someone to answer to in this chain of command when it comes to government, including the chief of police, including the sheriff. Now, the sheriff's is a little bit different than a city agency because, once again, I'll remind you, we elected the sheriff. So if a sheriff wins by a landslide in his or her election, they will look at that as a mandate to do exactly whatever platform they ran on, whether it was we're going to rule with an iron fist or we're going to rule in concert with the community. This is going to be a community effort when it comes to policing. We're going to listen. We're going to be compassionate. We're going to be understanding. If you break the law, there will be consequences, but this is more of a partnership rather than a dictatorship. And for far too many years in this country, law enforcement's relationship with some, not all members of the general public, was this is a dictatorship. You do what we say, no questions asked. So I want to know how you all feel about government's role, well, elected officials' roles when it comes to law enforcement and how they interact with the general public. Because it's not just cut and dry where you have a problem with this agency, it goes beyond the agency. It goes way beyond the agency. So I want you to think long and hard, not just with this upcoming national election, but any election that is coming up in the future. Ask our local politicians that are running for office how they feel about law enforcement. What type of law enforcement agency do you want? What are your thoughts and beliefs when it comes to use of force? What are your thoughts and beliefs when it comes to indictments? They should have to answer those questions, but they don't have to answer them if they're not being asked. So I just wanted to check in this afternoon. It was on my mind, with so much talk about this election that's coming up, really what the elections mean as it relates to law enforcement. Get at me. This is going to post live on the various platforms that I mentioned on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. comment, hit that notification bell, subscribe to those respective platforms to help our channel grow. And I want to thank you for tapping in. Cops and Convicts live stream, afternoon edition. Till next time.